Nice to see you all once again in this online chemistry class. We have started up with this new chapter, number 3, metals and non-metals. In the previous class, we had learned that these metals and non-metals fall under the category of elements because elements are substances that are all made up of only one kind of atoms and they cannot be split up by any chemical means. Similarly, when you talk about a metal, for example, copper, if you take a sheet of copper, the entire sheet of copper is made up of only one kind of atoms, right? When you take carbon, which is a non-metal, a piece of carbon is all made up of carbon atoms only. That is why these metals and non-metals fall under the category of elements. In today's class, we will discuss about the physical properties of metals. Let's begin with the first property of metals, that is luster. See, metals in their pure state have a shining surface. This property is called metallic luster. Why do we choose gold, silver and all for making ornaments? Because of these metals being lustrous in nature and various other properties are also taken into consideration. Since you are all familiar with the lustrous metals like gold, aluminium, copper and all, I want you to give some more examples like zinc, tungsten. These are also lustrous in nature. Next property is hardness. Hardness is the ability of a material to resist deformation. Underline the word resist deformation. Why? Because it will not undergo a change in its shape that easily. They are hard. That is one of the characteristics or physical properties of metals. I have shown you two pictures. In the first picture, they are cutting a piece of gold. Even a sheet of gold cannot be cut just like that with a knife or something. Only scratches will be made. You have to put in a lot of effort. The second picture shows the cutting of sodium. So care should be taken when you're handling sodium because sodium is a highly reactive metal which catches fire easily. So this metal sodium is normally stored under kerosene. To avoid this, before you cut this sodium and all, you have to dry it and then only you have to start working on it because it's highly reactive. So when we do the reactivity series, you'll learn more about it. Okay. Next property is malleability. Malleability is a property of a material by which it can be beaten to form thin sheets. See, hardness refers to the strength, right? It cannot undergo a change in its shape that easily, but when you beat it, it can be beaten into thin sheets by constantly applying pressure over it. So we get sheets of copper, we get sheets of aluminium. Why? Because these metals show the property of malleability. Malleability means what? It is a property possessed by a material by which it can be beaten to form thin sheets. And amongst metals, this gold is considered to be the most malleable metal, but zinc is an exception as it is not malleable. It is. Next is ductility. The ability of metals to be drawn into thin wires is called ductility. You remember ductility, the word starts with D. So means what? It can be drawn into wires. Because of this property only, we are able to use copper wires in our electrical wires. Even aluminium is used because these metals can be drawn into very fine, means thin wires. So the ability of metals to be drawn into thin wires is what is called as ductility. Examples you can give on your own: copper, aluminium. These are all familiar examples. Okay. Next, conductivity means what? You have learned in your physics about conductors, resistors and all. So metals in general are conductive in nature. That means what? It can allow electric current to pass through them and it can also withstand a huge amount of heat and it can allow heat to pass through it. And amongst metals there are also exceptionals which are poor conductors of heat and electricity. Okay, so since the property, that is this conductivity, is shown by these metals. We are using these metals for making our electrical wires, like copper is chosen there. Okay, so thermal conductivity means what? It will allow heat to pass through them. See, gold ornaments, when it is made, it is heated and then beaten and then given its shape. It's cut and all, molded. Iron, it's heated at a very high temperature and then beaten to give its shape. So it can withstand a very high amount of heat, or it can allow heat to pass through them. That property is what is called as conductivity. Means the property of metals allowing heat and electric current to pass through them is what is called as conductivity. Okay, next, sonorous. Sonorous means what? Sonorous metals are the metals which make a metallic sound when hit by any object. When you hit an object which is made out of a particular metal, it can produce sounds. Or see, even these silver utensils, copper utensils, what we are handling at home, by mistake, if we tend to drop them down on the floor, they tend to produce sounds. So sonorous means what? Sonorous metals are those metals which make a metallic sound when hit by any object. So these are the basic properties or physical properties of metals. Being lustrous in nature, being malleable, being ductile, showing the property of conductivity, sonorous. These are all the basic property of metals. But amongst these metals, though metals are said to possess these properties of being lustrous in nature, malleability, ductility, hardness, sonorous, there are few exceptionals. What are they? That's what we are going to see now. See here. Lead is a metal which is considered to be non-lustrous. That means what? Lead, when it is exposed, it loses its lustrous nature. See, earlier people used to use utensils made out of lead for cooking, and it cannot be heated at a very high temperature. You have to keep it on a very low flame, right? And this lead, which is said to be metallic in nature, is considered to be non-lustrous. And similarly, zinc does not show the property of malleability. Malleability means what? Beating into thin sheets. So zinc cannot be beaten into thin sheets. So they do not show the property of malleability. That is your zinc. Even mercury. Mercury is liquid in nature. Okay. See, even it does not show the property of malleability, ductility, but it is shiny. You must have learned about this mercury being filled in thermometers, clinical thermometers, laboratory thermometers and all, right? But this mercury also does not show the property of malleability and ductility. Now, this cesium, gallium, they all have very low melting points. That means when you keep them on your palm itself, they'll begin to melt. These are all some exceptional properties of metals. These metals like cesium, gallium, they are all classified under metals. They all come under the category of metals or elements. But these are all some exceptionals. This cesium and gallium, they have very low melting points, because even when you keep them on your palm, they'll begin to melt. And mercury is a metal which is liquid at room temperature. That is why we say that it does not possess the property of malleability, ductility and all. Okay, next. Lead is a metal which is a bad conductor of heat. I told you just now, earlier people used to use utensils made of lead for cooking. But this lead is non-lustrous in nature. It does not have a shiny surface. Okay. Then mercury is a non-sonorous metal. Means what? Maybe because it is liquid in room temperature, it is non-sonorous. Means it cannot produce sound when it is hit by a surface or when it is dropped down. See, similarly, your alkali metals like lithium, sodium, potassium, they are all soft metals. They do not come under the category of hard metals. Okay, they can be easily cut with a knife, but when you are handling sodium, as I told you, you should be very careful. Why should you be careful when you are handling sodium? Because it's highly reactive. It may catch fire when they come in contact with atmospheric oxygen. So normally it is stored under kerosene to avoid these accidents. See, though metals possess the property of luster, being hard in nature, malleability, ductility, conductivity, there are certain exceptions which you should be thorough with. As I told you, that you please make a note of, because it may come as your objective questions even. Once again, I'll tell you. See, lead is a metal which is considered to be non-lustrous. Zinc does not show the property of malleability. Even mercury, you can put them under that category. Mercury does not have the property of ductility, even malleability. And this mercury is liquid at room temperature. The cesium and gallium have very low melting point, because when you place them on your palm itself, it will begin to melt. And this lead, as I told you, is again a bad conductor of heat. So mercury is a non-sonorous metal because it will not produce any sound, being liquid in nature. As I told you, the metals like sodium, potassium are said to be soft. They can be easily cut with knife. But when you're handling metals like sodium, you should be very careful, as I told you earlier, because they are highly reactive. They may catch fire when it is coming in contact with the atmospheric oxygen. That is why they are stored under kerosene. Okay, so with this I'm coming to an end of today's session. So keep revising, and we'll continue with the remaining things in the next class. Till then, take care. Bye.